Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Liang Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's stories. The three-day strike that closed the Los Angeles public schools came to an end on Thursday. Parents reflected on the strikes, thanking a local nonprofit for providing meals to students who depend on school lunches. Also in Los Angeles, locals spotted a rare tornado on Wednesday. Local media described it as a possible landspout tornado. Federal trial dates have been set for the man accused of attacking Paul Pelosi. Later this year, the suspect will have a hearing and a jury trial. Today concluded the planned three-day strike held by the members of the school union SEIU 99 in Los Angeles. But for parents who rely on schools to provide meals for their children, the recent strike caused some panic. Let's take a look at how a local community organization stepped up.
While school staff in Los Angeles went on strike, public schools closed and left 500,000 students without classes or school lunches. So, Community Build, a nonprofit based in South LA, teamed up to help families who relied on schools to provide meals to their children.
Our communities already suffer from food insecurity. And so a incident like this where our schools are on strike and those meals that are provided for our children are not available, that puts a lot of strain on families, on individuals, on kids. We need nourishment.
A mother of two sons, ages 6 and 10, was one of those who depends on the school to provide a meal for her children.
You know, we have a budget, right? So we're expecting, when I go shopping, I'm like, okay, for dinner, I know they're gonna eat breakfast at school, they're gonna have lunch at school, right? So when the community comes and offers support with extra resources, it really takes the burden off of the parents.
Around 30,000 non-teaching staff, which included school bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria workers, and classroom assistants, walked out for the three-day strike. The United Teachers of Los Angeles, or UTLA, which represents teachers, also joined in. The strike started on Tuesday and will end today. School staff members are set to return to work on Friday.
A rare tornado near Los Angeles wrecked multiple cars and tore rooftops of buildings yesterday. Local media described it as a possible landspout tornado. Other parts of the state continue recovery efforts following the recent storms.
Multiple commercial buildings were damaged in the southern town of Montebello. A video posted on social media shows the wind sucking up debris and swirling in the air. According to the National Weather Service, the small tornado touched the ground at around 11:14 a.m. on Wednesday for about 2 to 3 minutes. Its winds reached 110 miles per hour. 17 structures were damaged, and 11 others were significantly damaged. It uprooted a tree, snapped a power pole, and damaged several vehicles. At least one person was injured. Meanwhile, in San Bernardino County, fire emergency crews rescued on Wednesday several large farm animals from mud. The teams assisted 17 animals, consisting of horses, cows, goats, and bulls. The operation required heavy machinery to clear paths to reach the animals. San Bernardino County Animal Control said that the workers would be taking the rescued animals to a local animal shelter for veterinary exams. The Los Angeles area received some of the heaviest rainfall from the latest storm. Downtown Los Angeles, Burbank, and Long Beach all measured well over an inch of rain on Tuesday. And in the San Francisco Bay Area, the storm killed at least 5 people. Officials said an Amtrak train carrying 55 passengers hit a fallen tree and derailed near the East Bay village of Porta Costa. No one was injured.
The man accused of the murder of a Los Angeles Catholic bishop has pleaded not guilty. Carlos Medina is accused of shooting and killing auxiliary Bishop David O'Connell on February 18th. He is the husband of the bishop's housekeeper. In court yesterday, he entered a not guilty plea. Investigators haven't shared a potential motive, but he had previously made comments about the bishop owing him money. Medina continues to be held in custody with a $2.3 million bail. His preliminary hearing is set to May 17th. We have an update on the Paul Pelosi attacker case. The federal trial for David DePape, the man accused of attacking Representative Nancy Pelosi's husband, will start later this year. And just a warning, some of the footage contains violence.
The federal trial of the man accused of attacking Representative Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, is set for later this year. A hearing for David DePape, the accused attacker, is scheduled for May 30th. His jury trial is slated for October 23, 2023. He is charged with attempting to kidnap a federal official and assaulting a family member of a federal official. He also faces state charges, including attempted murder. Previously, DePape pleaded not guilty to federal charges. The 43-year-old suspect is accused of attacking Paul Pelosi, 82, in the early morning hours of October 28, 2022. Police body camera footage released earlier this year shows DePape and Pelosi speaking with officers. The suspect then appears to hit the elderly man in the head with a hammer. Pelosi was hospitalized for several days with a skull fracture and other injuries, his family said. While DePape's federal trial is set, a trial date in the state case against him has not yet been scheduled. If convicted on state charges, he could face life in prison. For the federal charges, he could face between 20 and 30 years in prison.
In a bid to meet its renewable energy goals, California legislators are proposing measures to speed up power line construction. The bills are aimed at streamlining the regulatory process for building new power lines. State senators are proposing measures to speed up the process of building new electrical transmission lines. These power lines are intended to help the state deliver on its aggressive renewable energy goals. The bills up for consideration are Senate Bills 420 and 619. Senator Steve Padilla, author of SB 619, said in a press release, California's grid is in dire need of modernization. SB 619 intends to expand electrical transmission lines and the facilities eligible for certification by the State Resources Conservation and Development Commission. According to Padilla, these bold energy goals will require a larger and more resilient electrical grid. This means new high-voltage cables, modernized cable networks, and new infrastructure. And SB 420, authored by Senator Josh Becker, seeks to expedite environmental reviews and eliminate economic reviews by the Public Utilities Commission. According to the two lawmakers, the commission has not approved a new transmission project in over 10 years due to severe regulatory hurdles. The construction is expected to cost more than $30 billion in the next 2 decades, according to analysis by the California Independent System Operator. In recent years, Governor Gavin Newsom has spearheaded the state's climate goals, requiring the state to switch to clean energy sources by 2045. A federal judge has granted a preliminary injunction against the key parts of the California Unsafe Handgun Act. The court found that the law violates the right to bear arms under the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution.
On March 20th, U.S. District Judge Cormac Carney ruled in favor of the California Rifle and Pistol Association and 4 individuals who had filed a lawsuit last year, challenging the constitutionality of California's Unsafe Handgun Act. The law was enacted in 1999 and sought to prevent accidental discharges. It required new handguns to have 3 specific safety features. This included an indicator showing whether the handgun is loaded, a disconnect mechanism to prevent firing if the magazine is not fully inserted, and a microstamping capability, allowing the handgun's make, model, and serial number to be transferred onto shell casings when fired. Plaintiffs argue that the law violated the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, because no handguns were being manufactured that complied with all 3 of those features. According to his ruling, Carney noted that the technology for microstamping on a broad scale is not feasible or practical. The judge ultimately ruled that the law is unconstitutional and cannot be enforced. He granted a preliminary injunction against its enforcement, but he noted that the injunction will not take place for 14 days, allowing the state a chance to appeal. In a statement, Attorney General Rob Bonta says that the state will likely appeal the ruling.
We are going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. Los Angeles City Council members approved an ordinance to penalize people who steal catalytic converters. The move comes after the city and state have reported a recent increase of converter thefts. In San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors also approved a new proposal. Board members plan to grant more police overtime funding to boost the public safety. And a century-old refinery is going green. A new project would transform the plant from processing crude oil to creating renewable energy. That and more on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Liang Zhang. The City Council of Los Angeles approved an ordinance that would penalize people for unlawful possession of catalytic converters. The move is an effort to curb the recent rise in catalytic converter thefts.
The Los Angeles City Council approved an ordinance to prohibit the unlawful possession of catalytic converters. Under the ordinance, offenders can be fined $1,000 or be placed in jail for 6 months. The motion was first presented in April 2022 by Councilman John Lee and Paul Krikorian and then Councilman Mitchell Farrell. According to the motion, 972 catalytic converters were reported stolen across the city in 2018. In 2022, the number almost reached 8,000 thefts. This is nearly a 728% increase within 5 years. Councilman Lee said, "When crime data show this kind of escalation, I believe at this time we need to act." If adopted, the ordinance would require a person in possession of a detached catalytic converter to produce a form of valid documentation showing they own the device. In the end, the motion advanced with an 8-4 vote. The issue will return to the council for a final vote in April.
Speaking of new proposals, after a heated debate during a San Francisco supervisors meeting, the board approved more police overtime. The debate revolved around funds mismanagement and public safety. NTD's David Lam has the story.
The San Francisco Board of Supervisors discussed police overtime in a heated discussion on Tuesday. After a 9-2 vote, the board ultimately approved $25 million in more police overtime funding to ensure safer streets.
For the past few weeks, this board and the public have stood up to public safety. Residents should be able to walk down the street, go to school, ride Muni, or shop in San Francisco without the fear of being attacked. Residents should be able to park their car on the street in San Francisco and not return to a smashed window, stolen bags, or car parts sawed off.
Supervisor Engardio says San Francisco PD is understaffed by about 500 officers.
No one wants to be a police officer in San Francisco anymore. Too often, they don't feel welcome.
The San Francisco Standard reports that the board passed the budget supplemental with Supervisors Shaman Walton and Dean Preston dissenting. There were arguments over police being deployed to retail shopping districts over neighborhoods. Preston said there have been fewer calls per officer, longer response times, lower clearance rates, and questions SFPD's budget spending after a $50 million budget increase in the summer of 2022.
The reality here is that police wildly overspent their already increased budget and now want a bailout with more raises, bonuses, and unlimited overtime, with most of it going to protect luxury retail stores and tourists in areas that are already saturated, not just with police coverage, but with 10B officers, private security, and community ambassadors.
But the city's police chief's main concern was to prevent a hiring freeze.
This additional money that the supervisor is proposing, of course I would not turn it down. Could we use it? Absolutely.
The Budget Committee chair had concerns over how spending was managed, but nonetheless supported public safety.
We know that police and ambassador are not the only solution to public safety. They are only part of the solution. We still need to make sure our city provides resources and support to our firefighters, EMT, 911 dispatchers, nurses, and street cleaners.
This funding approval comes as city residents and visitors report seeing increased theft and car break-ins. David Lam, NTD News, California.
A century-old refinery is going green. Representatives say the plant will move from processing crude oil to creating renewable diesel.
The oldest refining town in the American West, Phillips 66, is promising a greener future as it moves to halt crude oil processing and build a massive renewable diesel plant. Phillips 66 representatives say the project, dubbed Rodeo Renewed, will significantly cut certain regulated pollutants and will lead to large cuts in greenhouse gases when the biofuel is burned in vehicles.
And so all of our historical operations, again, have been based on processing and refining crude oil into transportation fuels. After our facility conversion, we will no longer process crude oil.
That plan, announced in 2020, was initially welcomed by residents wary from a history of pollution and spills. But some have grown skeptical as the project's details cast doubt on the environmental benefits of revamping the 127-year-old complex on 1,100 acres in Rodeo, California.
When we heard about the new renewable fuels, it sounds perfect. The refineries have tons of Texas attorneys picking the right words and saying everything they think we all want to hear. But we have a lot of chemists involved, and it is not all what it's cracked up to be as to where they're going to get the fats and oils and soy. And there's still going to be refining diesel and petroleum too. And I just am very upset about the hazards of the hydrogen plant.
The company initially claimed that the project would slash greenhouse gases by half, but the claim doesn't match the project's environmental impact report published by county regulators. According to a Reuters calculation of emissions data, there would only be a 1% reduction. What's more, refining petroleum byproducts may continue as a side project. And renewable diesel production will increase marine and train traffic, which increases emissions and spill risk. The conversion also requires boosting natural gas usage to produce the hydrogen required to make the biofuel.
And so there is always going to be some level of trade-off for what we need to keep vehicles moving, products delivered. Heavy haul trucking is a vital aspect to our way of life in this country and in this world. And renewable diesel is the lowest emission way to fuel that energy that we need to keep our trucks moving.
These variables raise questions about Phillips 66's marketing of renewable diesel as a green fuel. Independent environmental experts say it is also impossible to tell how much the overhaul will reduce community pollution.
I expect to see no improvement whatsoever. You'll just get a different set of chemicals coming out of the refineries compared with the traditional refineries of diesel or gasoline.
Some Rodeo residents worry the overhaul could become another chapter in a long story of local pollution. In addition to the Phillips 66 plant, the area has hosted a second oil refinery, a lead smelter, and a dynamite factory. The town in Contra Costa County has much higher concentrations of illness, poverty, and brownfield cleanup sites than most California communities.
I've been a clinical lab scientist for 45 years, and in the public health realm a lot. And I think that's partly why I'm fascinated by what's going on here and saddened as well. It's a toxic soup that we live in every day. And we're basically a disposable community here.
Brennan called the project an experiment with uncertain environmental benefits. After initially cheering on the plan and its reduction of certain emissions, she realized that there are still too many questions.
There's a lot of unknowns here because they have not been open with us about what the feedstock will be. So unknown feedstock, unknown effects. So we're in a place where we just don't know what's going to happen here.
Renewable diesel is made from feedstocks such as soybean oil, beef tallow, or used cooking oil. It can be used in heavy-duty truck engines with no modifications. The Phillips 66 plant may also produce other biofuels. The County Board of Supervisors approved the project in May, which is expected to start operations in early 2024.
Now let's check in with NTD's Tyler Castillo for today's Sports Roundup.
Hello, I'm Tyler Castillo. Welcome to today's California Sports Roundup. Jonathan Kuminga had a team-high 22 points off the bench. Draymond Green and Stephen Curry hit key hoops down the stretch, and Golden State scored a big win over host Dallas. The result had major short-term ramifications in the Western Conference playoff race, with Golden State not only moving 1.5 games up on Dallas, but also gaining a tiebreaker advantage by claiming the season series 2-1. The game also featured a controversial play late in the third quarter, with the Mavericks vowing to file a formal protest to the NBA, alleging a mistake by referees led to 2 uncontested points by the Warriors. Curry finished with 20 points and a team-high 13 assists for the Warriors, and Kevin Looney added 12 points and 12 rebounds. In his return from a 5-game absence due to a strained thigh, Luka Doncic paced the Mavericks with 30 points, 17 assists, and 7 rebounds. Warriors 127, Mavericks 125. Anthony Davis recorded 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists to help Los Angeles notch a solid victory over visiting Phoenix. D'Angelo Russell added 26 points and 6 assists, and Austin Reeves had 25 points and a career-high 11 assists as the Lakers won their second straight game. Devin Booker scored 33 points and Chris Paul added 18 for the Suns, who have dropped 5 of their past 6 games. And even though Landry Shamet added 15 points and Torrey Craig added 14 for the Suns, the fire was doused. Lakers 122, Suns 111. Robbie Gould's 6-year tenure with the San Francisco 49ers appears to be over. The 40-year-old Gould has been kicking in the NFL since 2005. He's played for the Chicago Bears, New York Giants, and the 49ers. Gould made 27 of 32 field goals and 50 of 51 extra points in 2022. For his career, Gould has made 86.5% of his field goals, including an NFL best 97.1% in 2018. Gould hit 87.5% of his field goals during his time with the 49ers and had a penchant for making clutch kicks. The 49ers championship window is also open after they went 13-4 and reached the NFC Championship game last year, so whoever comes in will likely be tasked with performing in key situations. As for Gould, he'll be looking for a new team after his 4-year, $19 million contract expires. He's one of the most consistent kickers in the history of the game and should easily garner interest in free agency. That is it for today's Sports Roundup. I'm Tyler Castillo. Thank you for watching.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm Leng Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.